What I've learned from my International Booker Prize 2024 prediction that I did earlier this year is that I'm not great at predictions. But was I still going to try and read the Booker 2024 shortlist and try and predict the winner all over again? Absolutely. But this time I'll also be ranking these shortlisted books. So buckle up because it's going to be a long ride. Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. Also welcome to the second Booker video of the year. Something that if you told me this at the beginning of the year that I'd be doing, I'd have laughed in your face. But in today's video, I'll be taking you through my thoughts about the books that were shortlisted for the Booker Prize 2024, and I'm also going to be ranking these books and trying to predict the winner before it is announced on the 12th of November, which is tomorrow. Anyway, like I did in my International Booker Prize video, for those of you who are like me from a few months ago and don't know much about the Booker Prizes, here's a little description. There are two kinds of Booker Prizes, both hosted in the UK. One is the International Booker Prize, the winner for the 2024 edition of which was announced earlier this year and for which I did a full video about. If you'd like to go check that video out, link will be here as well as in the description box below. So the International Booker Prize was started in 2005 and was a biannual event until 2015 when it became annual. It is awarded to the best fiction translation into English that is published in the UK and or Ireland. And the winner for this gets a £50,000 prize split equally between the author and the translator. Previous winners for this include Nobel winner Han Kang and translator Deborah Smith for The Vegetarian, Olga Tokarczuk and translator Jennifer Croft for Flights, and our very own Geetanjali Shree and translator Daisy Rockwell for Tomb of Sand. And then the Booker Prize, the 2024 shortlist for which I'll be taking you through in this video. This was previously also known as the Man Booker Prize and is awarded to the best English language fiction published in the UK and or Ireland. And the winner gets a £50,000 prize, and obviously like the International Booker, more visibility and ergo more sales. Like every other prize, the Booker Prize also had its share of controversies because of its inclusivity caveats, but at this point we are going to look on the bright side, okay? Okay, so this year the winner is going to be announced on the 12th of November at a London event. 12th of November meaning tomorrow, and I know I'm cutting it too close, but now, the judging panel changes every year, but there are always 5 judges from different parts of the literary world who are set to do what is very obviously a very challenging job. And this year, to quote the Booker website, we have artist and author Edmund de Waal, novelist Sarah Collins, The Guardian's fiction editor Justine Jordan, writer and professor Ye-Yun Lee, and musician, composer and producer Nitin Sohni. Moving on to the Booker 2024 shortlist, the Booker dozen this year featured more authors who I'd never heard of and just a couple that I had. Of these 13 books, 6 books were chosen to be part of the shortlist, which I'll take you through in today's video where I'll review and also rank them. I'll also tell you which book I think should win the Booker Prize 2024 and the book that I think will actually win the prize, which could be two completely different things if you ask me. But first, the shortlist. The 6 books that were shortlisted for the Booker Prize 2024 are Held by Anne Michaels, Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood, James by Percival Everett, Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, Orbital by Samantha Harvey, and The Safekeep by Yael Vander Wouden. Now, one thing that I've noticed among all of these books, maybe not all, but 5 of these books, because one, okay, let's not go there. But I have noticed that these books are all about the characters learning. They are learning, they are growing, they are progressing, and there's a lot of improvement in character strength as well, and that is something that connects all of these books. There's that thread going through all of them, and I love that theme because that is what humanity is all about. So for that and more, kudos to the panel for the shortlist. But let's not get ahead of ourselves before I share my thoughts about these books with you. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this video and let me share with you my thoughts, my reviews, my ranking of the Booker 2024 shortlist, and let's see if my winner and the Booker winner actually end up being the same. A quick note, these books are in the order that I read them and not in any order of preference or dislike. First up is Stone Yard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. Stone Yard Devotional is set in Australia and it follows a not so religious woman who goes to live in a religious community to escape her life and find some peace. But becoming a recluse doesn't mean that she can stop her thoughts. Add to that, 3 things happen while she's there that affect her and her thinking. First, a mouse plague. Second, the returning bones of a long dead sister of the convent. And third, someone accompanying these bones who seems to have a past connection with the main character. And throughout these events, these women at the convent are confronted with questions about hope, goodness, forgiveness, grief, and peace with oneself. Stone Yard Devotional is a story that is told with stark, spare writing. It is like the journal of someone who likes to do away with traditional sentence structures in some places and with certain words altogether in others. And every page makes you wonder about the timeline that the story is following. Like 100 pages in, you are confused, but by the end, you've just given up trying to understand the chronology of the story. But that's not necessarily a bad thing though, because through all of it, it makes some important points, mainly about the church, but many of these points we've seen in other books or other forms of media. The most recent book that I was reminded of was Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These, but I must point out that I am talking only on the basis of the skeleton of the story and not based on the plot context. So Stone Yard Devotional is a story of a non-religious woman living in a religious world, moreover in the hub of all of it, like so many people in the world. So to see her grapple with all of these questions was pretty interesting. But I have to point out that the writing will make you want to throw hands at times because it can feel dry and dragged. It will make your brain parched, like desperate for some deliciously emotional prose. But even though those are few and far between, they are just enough to keep the story elevated as a whole. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Stone Yard Devotional is a book that will make you think and wonder as long as the topic and the writing style work for you. Next is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This is my second read from the shortlist and I think it's my favorite of the lot. I read this as an ebook and the way I kept pausing to write down my thoughts and to write down excerpts from the book so frantically is no joke. I was writing it down in this notebook and I honestly think that half of this notebook at this point is just Orbital quotes. Orbital is about 4 astronauts and 2 cosmonauts in space orbiting the Earth in one of the space station's last missions. Through the accounts of these 6 men and women, we see the Earth and the universe beyond in all its vastness and its grandeur, provoking thoughts about humanity, how its collective mind is turned inwards, its generosity, its cruelty, human connection, and how despite us knowing a lot, the extent of our knowledge is still limited in the grand scheme of things. On an individual level, we are taken through the lives of these people in the space station through their thoughts and reminiscences. And all of this against the backdrop of 16 sunrises and sunsets every day, given that they are hurtling around Earth in an orbit at thousands of miles an hour. Orbital starts off feeling a little abrupt, what with the lack of punctuation, but it soon grew on me so much so that a few pages down the line, I was frantically writing down sentences and paragraphs and whatnot, so much so that my hands started aching. For example, look at this quote: "The earth from here is like heaven. It flows with color, a burst of hopeful color. When we are on that planet, we look up and think heaven is elsewhere." But here is what the astronauts and cosmonauts sometimes think. Maybe all of us born to it have already died and are in an afterlife. If we must go to an improbable, hard to believe in place when we die, that glassy, distant orb with its beautiful, lonely light shows could well be it. Orbital is super atmospheric and it transports you into outer space. I know I was transported out there, and every time I had to tear myself away from the sight of the earth twirling around before me, and from the weightlessness of space, and from the thoughts of me being just a speck in the grand scheme of things, was a disappointment of gigantic proportions. The writing keeps you invested and it will hold your hand as it takes you through a slew of existential questions that will keep orbiting your mind as sure as the moon orbits the earth and the earth in turn orbits the sun. I love this book so much that when I went to meet a friend who was in Sydney and we bought each other books, Orbital was what I chose for her to gift me. So thank you, thank you, thank you, A, for this gift. You know, I'm going to hold this close to my heart for a very long time. Next was Held by Anne Michaels, and oh boy, this book. But Held is a historical fiction told in bits and pieces. Like, we go back and forth in time, following soldiers, war veterans, nurses, their family members, friends, the power of community, working a business in a polarizing time, and the resonating power of feelings and decisions, some of which can be felt generations down the line. On its own, it feels like a fantastic premise because around a war, something that feels ongoing for a number of reasons, emotions pulse, and examining them against a violent backdrop is important. But the problem with this book is that it feels like a very fragmented, broken narrative trying very hard to be relatable with the quotable quotes that are scattered throughout the story. And that was the least of my problems with it. There were so many places in there where I was simply bored. The abrupt jumps between narrative points, the contemplative sentences between the set points, the disjointedness of it all of it just didn't work for me. And at the end of the book, I was left with a raging headache. And that is never a good thing to have after a book ends. Next came The Safekeep by Yael van der Wouden, and this is set in 1961 Netherlands, and it follows Isabel, a severe, serious woman who is living in the country home that once belonged to her mother. She is meticulous in taking care of the house and in recording the contents of the house, and she is very distrustful of the people around her, especially of her house help, and she is convinced that the help is stealing from her. One evening at a family dinner, Louis introduces them to his girlfriend Eva. Hendrik, who is Louis and Isabel's younger brother, hides his disapproval well, but Isabel is pretty open in her disdain. And when Louis has to go out of town, he leaves Eva with Isabel, and what follows is a lot of butting of opinions, a lot of suspicions about things disappearing from the house, and all of it morphing into an infatuation teetering on the edge of obsession. But when Isabel discovers something massive and explosive, things are about to change in a way that she never thought they could, and a war that ended years ago makes its way into the house. To be honest, the characters make it very difficult to love the book at the beginning. Like, Isabel and Eva are both characters who made me want to tear my hair out. One because she was too rigorous and too strict on the verge of being tyrannical, and the other because she was too irreverent and disrespectful of boundaries. The writing makes you work hard to like it. At least the first half is like it's taking a long leisurely stroll around the garden as if there aren't readers getting sunburned just a few feet from it. And the second half, on the other hand, is like a courtroom. Every piece of information enters the courtroom and stays there waiting for you to paint the picture, and what a picture it is. And it is in this second half that so many things that were unseen to the naked eye at first become clearer. The queer angst of the 1960s, the aftermath of the war, the loneliness and solitude and how they contrast with the misogynistic society of the time, don't judge a book by its cover, and so much more. I also want to point out the irony that shows itself here. Jewish people losing their homes to anti-Semitism and so much more, and their hardliners, Zionists, inflicting the exact same racism on the Arabs will never not astound, exasperate, anger and disgust me. Like, this needs to be studied, but I think we all know what it is at this point. The end to this book, however, felt a little rushed. Like, the speed at which things were tied up at the end felt not proportional to the speed at which the rest of the book had been going on. I'll still rate this book favorably and highly so, especially and mostly because of how it focuses on how far into the future the effects of war can be felt. For book 5, I actually started reading Creation Lake, but the writing didn't appeal to me, so I decided to start reading James before I gave Creation Lake another chance. And all I want to say about James by Percival Everett is, what a book! This is a reimagining of Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and is told from Jim's point of view. Jim is an enslaved man who, when he learns that he is about to be sold to another slave owner, runs away and hides in the nearby Jackson Island. He is joined by Huckleberry Finn, who, after having faked his own death to escape his violent father, is also on the run. Now they go on a journey together, but while seeing the story from Huck's perspective makes so many important details irrelevant, as happens in a white supremacist society, seeing them from Jim's perspective opens up so many more avenues and gives us so many more insights into how society worked back then. Percival Everett brings out the nuances to Jim's story in a compelling and searing manner that peels away layers of your mind and everything you know about society. He examines white supremacy and privilege in a way that is both precise and microscopic, what and who upheld it at the time, and shines light on the things that people explained away as being traits of the good white people, but which in fact still enabled the upholders of slavery. More than anything, we see how black joy and love and intellect was oppressed just so that white people could feel good about themselves. James is the story of one man on the run fighting for survival in a world that is hell-bent on shackling him and his people. It is the story of resilience, of determination, of a man caught between a rock and a hard place, but who still plows on and does what is right. It is the story of a man fighting for freedom, for family, the story of a kind, smart, educated man who knows how to use his traits to survive. And it is the story of one man's journey from Jim to James, a journey that takes great bravery to do in a world that is ruled by people who despise people like him. I love this book to no end, and I know that I'm going to be thinking about James for a long time to come. It is one of my 2024 favorites. And last but not the least is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. I know I left Creation Lake to the last. I know I did this to myself, but I tried. I swear I tried, but I just couldn't move forward any more than before. I'm just stuck there. And it irritated me too early in the book to warrant me explaining the book in my own terms. So let me read out the Goodreads blog to you. Creation Lake is a novel about a secret agent, a 34-year-old American woman of ruthless tactics, bold opinions, and clean beauty, who is sent to do dirty work in France. Sadie Smith is how the narrator introduces herself to her lover, to the rural commune of French subversives on whom she is keeping tabs, and to the reader. Sadie has met her love, Lucien, a young and well-born Parisian, by cold bump, making him believe the encounter was accidental. Like everyone Sadie targets, Lucien is useful to her and used by her. Sadie operates by strategy and dissimulation based on what her contacts, shadowy figures in business and government, instruct. First, these contacts want her to incite provocation, then they want more. In this region of centuries-old farms and ancient caves, Sadie becomes entranced by a mysterious figure named Bruno Lacombe, a mentor to the young activist who communicates only by email. Bruno believes that the path to emancipation from what ails modern life is not revolt, but a return to the ancient past. Just as Sadie is certain she is the seductress and puppet master of those she surveils, Bruno Lacombe is seducing her with his ingenious counter-histories, his artful laments, his own tragic story. Written in short, vaulting sections, Rachel Kushner's rendition of Noah is taut and dazzling. Creation Lake is Kushner's finest achievement yet as a novelist, a work of high art, high comedy, and unforgettable pleasure. Considering how quickly I DNF'd it, I am not going to put it on my book list. And I'll tell you what I've told everyone who asked me on Instagram about why I've DNF'd it. This book feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be fiction? Does it want to be non-fiction? Does it want to be a PhD thesis? Look, I might pick it up sometime later just to see what it is. Could it be a year from now? 10 years from now? Who knows? But now is not that time. And that is all that I can tell you about it. Now, moving on to my ranking of these books. And I have to say that Creation Lake is not at the bottom of this list, even though I DNF'd it. Or maybe because I DNF'd it. So here are the books from this shortlist ranked from worst to best. In my opinion. In my humble opinion. Thank you. At number 6, at the bottom of the pile, is Held by Anne Michaels. I don't see this book at any other position, to be honest. It was too much of a broken narrative for my liking. And then coming in at number 5 is Creation Lake. Like, I did DNF it, so it does make sense that it sits right next to the book that I didn't like, right? Then at number 4 comes Stonyard Devotional, which is a book that I did like, but only to a certain extent. And it goes to show how good the shortlist was this year, that a book that I objectively liked is at number 4. At number 3 is the Safekeep. Given that the top 2 books are such favorites to the next level, there was only one position for this book, and that's number 3. And now there was a fierce fight between the 2 remaining books as to which would take the top spot, but one just edged the other out in terms of poetic writing. But believe me, it was the tiniest of differences. So at number 2 is James by Percival Everett, and the top spot was taken by Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This is a book that I hold so dear in so many ways that I've already described here before. It's just chef's kiss. Next up, moving on to the prediction. You actually thought this was going to be this simple, did you? I'm covering all my bases this time. Of this whole winner discussion, I think there's going to be 3 parts on my account. The first is that the book that I want to win. The book that I want to win is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. Given that it covers such larger concepts such as the minuteness of humanity in the grand scheme of things and the importance of holding on to human emotions and human connections through all of it. Second, the book that I think should win the prize, and I think that James should win the Booker Prize 2024 because it flips a classic and gives us the story from the perspective of a character who is marginalized in more ways than one, having just been used as a plot point to further the story of the main character in the original, but who now has a voice of his own. Third is the book that I think will actually win, and I do think that that is James too. But I also have the suspicion that Held or Creation Lake might sneak up on James and take the cake. But let me go out on a limb and make my final prediction for this time while holding on to Orbital. I hope and I think that James will win the Booker Prize 2024. So that is my prediction. James by Percival Everett. So those were my reviews and my rankings of the Booker Prize 2024 shortlist and also my winner prediction. The winner will be announced tomorrow, the 12th of November at I think 9:45 p.m. GMT if I'm not mistaken. So that will be 13th morning over here. And going by my last Booker experience, I don't want to be cocky and say I can't wait to find out that I'm right. I wasn't last time, by the way. But maybe I can say that I can't wait to find out who wins the Booker Prize 2024. So what did you think of this video? Did you like it? Have you read any of these books? If you have, what did you think of them? If you haven't, will you pick any of these books up after watching this video? And which book are you rooting for? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.